"What are you doing here, janitor?" Jason scoffed, glaring down at Marcus, who was quietly pushing his cart through the marble-floored office lobby. The CEO of the company, surrounded by his executive team, looked at Marcus like he was nothing more than an inconvenience. The room's atmosphere froze for a moment, the tension palpable as Jason continued, "I'm paying you to clean, not interrupt my day." Marcus paused, his gaze steady, betraying nothing. He knew this moment was coming. His hands tightened around the handle of the cart, but he said nothing. For a split second, Jason's smirk widened, believing the power imbalance was clear. But Marcus's silence? That was the calm before the storm. Something was about to change, and Jason had no idea just how wrong he was. Marcus Brown had been with the company for years, silently cleaning up after the same people who saw him as nothing more than a shadow in their world. He knew their names, their habits, and even their secrets. But none of them knew him. They never bothered to look beyond the janitor's uniform he wore each day. His hands, rough from years of labor, had once held a briefcase, not a mop. He had once been a promising analyst, making waves in the finance world. But life had thrown him a curveball, and he found himself cleaning the offices of the very people who treated him like an invisible ghost. Jason Miller, the arrogant CEO, was just one of many who looked down on him. He never missed a chance to belittle Marcus, assuming that he was nothing more than a cog in the machine. It was a daily insult, but Marcus never fought back. He had learned to swallow his pride, his ambitions buried under years of hardship. But today, something was different. Jason's words, his sneering tone, it all cut deeper than before. Marcus knew he had a choice: continue to fade into the background, or finally take a stand. He felt it, the shift, the spark inside him that had been waiting for the right moment to ignite. And today, that moment had arrived. The meeting room buzzed with the chatter of executives, all wearing their polished, superior smiles. Marcus stood silently in the corner, his cleaning supplies neatly arranged. As usual, Jason Miller had positioned himself at the center of attention, the king of the room, while Marcus, invisible as ever, went unnoticed. But today, Jason wasn't content with ignoring him. "Marcus, are you cleaning this room, or just standing around?" Jason's voice rang out across the room, dripping with mockery. The executive snickered. "Shouldn't you be cleaning something instead of lurking like a ghost?" The laughter grew louder, echoing off the walls. Marcus felt their eyes on him, the sting of their laughter a sharp slap against his dignity. The air in the room grew thick with humiliation. The executives, all too eager to join in, exchanged looks of amusement, their eyes scanning Marcus like he was some kind of joke. He could feel their judgment weigh heavily on him, every mocking glance a reminder of how little they saw him, how little they thought of him. He gripped the mop tightly, his knuckles turning white, the anger simmering just beneath the surface. But he didn't speak, didn't react. He had learned long ago to stay silent, to endure. But in that silence, something inside him began to shift, and Jason's words started to feel like a challenge rather than an insult. The laughter in the room continued to echo, and Marcus could feel the heat rising in his chest. The mocking remarks, the condescending smiles. Every word that Jason spoke felt like a knife twisting deeper. "What's wrong, Marcus? Can't handle a little joke? Or are you too busy being invisible?" Jason's words sliced through the air, laced with venom. The room held its collective breath, waiting for Marcus to react. He could feel every set of eyes on him, their gaze like daggers, forcing him to shrink under the weight of their expectations. The tension was unbearable, suffocating him. His heart raced, each beat pushing against the pressure in his chest. For a moment, he thought about walking out, disappearing into the shadows as he always had. But something stopped him. A voice inside him, quiet but growing louder, told him he didn't have to take this anymore. He stood up straighter, his shoulders no longer slumped. He set the mop down with a quiet thud, the sound cutting through the silence like a declaration. Jason's smug grin faltered, just for a moment, but it was enough. The room seemed to hold its breath as Marcus walked toward the center of the room, the weight of every gaze pressing down on him. He had never felt more visible, and for the first time, he wasn't running away. He was walking toward the storm, ready to face it head-on. Marcus stopped in his tracks, just a few feet away from Jason, and for a moment, the room fell into a tense silence. Jason's confident smirk slowly began to fade, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. "Are you sure you want to do that?" one of the executives whispered, his voice barely audible over the growing tension. Marcus's eyes locked with Jason's, a moment of stillness that seemed to stretch on forever. For a brief second, it was as if time stood still. The smugness in Jason's eyes began to waver, a crack in his armor that no one had ever seen before. Marcus didn't speak, but his presence in that moment was enough to make everyone pause. The silence in the room felt heavier now, the weight of the decision Marcus was about to make pressing down on them all. Marcus stood still, his gaze unwavering as he locked eyes with Jason. The room was thick with tension, the air hanging heavy with unspoken words. Jason's confidence was cracking, his smirk replaced by a slight twitch in his brow. He had made a mistake, and for the first time, he felt it. "You think I'm just a janitor, don't you?" Marcus said quietly, his voice steady but firm. The room went silent at his words, the executives who had been laughing now frozen in place. Jason's jaw clenched, but Marcus could see the subtle panic in his eyes, the realization creeping in. He had underestimated Marcus, assumed he was just another faceless employee, someone easy to disregard. But Marcus wasn't who Jason thought he was. The pieces were starting to fall into place. Marcus had never been just a janitor. He had once been a key player in the finance world, a man who had held a powerful position before life knocked him down. But now, standing before them, he was something more. The truth was right there, hovering in the air, but Jason couldn't see it yet. "I know everything about this company," Marcus continued, his voice cutting through the silence. Jason's eyes widened ever so slightly, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. He had no idea just how wrong he was, how deeply he had misjudged the man standing in front of him. Marcus reached into his pocket, the soft rustle of fabric barely audible in the silence. He pulled out a small badge and held it up for the room to see. The gleaming silver emblem caught the light, the words "Senior Financial Analyst" etched in bold letters across the front. Jason's eyes went wide, the color draining from his face as the truth hit him like a freight train. The room, once filled with laughter and mockery, now stood completely still. Marcus wasn't just a janitor. He wasn't a nobody. He had once held the keys to the company's financial strategies, trusted with secrets Jason had no idea existed. "I wasn't always cleaning your floors, Jason," Marcus said, his voice low but unmistakably powerful. "I used to be in your shoes, making decisions, running the show. But when I found out about your little games, I chose to walk away. I chose to disappear." The weight of Marcus's words hung in the air, thick with the weight of betrayal and truth. Jason's gaze faltered as Marcus continued, his grip tightening around the badge, a symbol of a power Jason had never seen coming. The room was no longer in Jason's control. The tables had turned. The truth had been revealed, and there was no way back now. Jason sat there, his face pale, unable to speak as Marcus's words rang in his ears. The executives around him shifted uncomfortably, some glancing nervously at each other, others avoiding Jason's gaze. The power that had once been in Jason's hands was slipping away, replaced by the undeniable truth that Marcus had exposed. Slowly, Marcus turned, his every step deliberate as he walked toward the door. "You've lost more than just a job, Jason. You've lost your integrity," Marcus said, his voice cold, leaving the room in stunned silence. As the door clicked shut behind him, Jason was left to face the consequences of his arrogance. The room that once catered to his every word now seemed empty, hollow. Karma had come for him, and it had arrived with a quiet, undeniable force.